The way for a wealthy country is to work hard through frugality and through improving one's skills, not by having the Fed print money. Last time that we sent out $1,200 checks, I stopped by my local Walmart, and the people in charge of the electronics section said they'd never seen such sales in their life. Is that really going to improve a lot of Americans to go over and buy some more electronic junk from China? Apparently so. And let's not forget, when we look at inflation, we have inflation right now. Twice in the recent past, we've changed the definition on what inflation is. So we do have inflation. It's just that we keep changing the definition to mask it. That's why the market is up. The market is up because we really do have inflation. We're in the U.S. Congress. We should not think the way to prosperity is just printing money. We should act like we're the United States. It's why that for my whole life, other countries like to invest in the dollar. They respect the value of the dollar more than the national currencies of Burundi, Afghanistan, Yemen, and Bolivia. Those are 4 per countries. That's why I picked them out. So I encourage Senator McDonnell to hold the line here, to act responsibly. Thank you.
Has expired. Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Texas reserves, and the gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Might I remind the gentleman that this is not about creating a path to prosperity. This is a better path about creating a path to liquidity, which subsequently creates a path to demand for people at the lower end of the economic spectrum, 20 million of whom are not working at the moment through no fault of their own. And with that, let me yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Virginia, an excellent member of the Ways and Means Committee, Congressman Beyer, for 2 minutes.
Gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise to support the Cash Act, which will send $2,000 checks to the American people. I want to thank Chairman Neal for coming together very quickly to create this act in a thoughtful way. The American people are hurting this holiday season, and they need our help. Our bill would increase those payments to $2,000, which would also include adult dependents, students, and realizing that $600 is not enough for people facing eviction and hunger. For many, this would just pay a past due rental bill from July. It's good and important that we're sending support to small businesses, strong unemployment aid, nutrition and rental assistance, but this relief is coming 7 months later than it should have. And it's vital that Congress not penny pinch the American people now. This cash bill is bipartisan, and if Senator Mitch McConnell would put it on the Senate floor, it would be bicameral. Let me push back to that this is too much. If 40 million Americans work full-time and make less than $18,000 last year, the minimum wage, $7.25, there isn't a single 2-bedroom apartment you can rent in a county in America for that money. Tens of millions without health care. My family sells new cars and used cars, and I've watched the debt burden of so many people just rise and rise and rise over the years. Is there a better way? You know, my Republican friends hate it when so-called big government decides what we need. The best way to let people manage their family is to put the money in their hands. Give them that American freedom. Somehow we can print money to do a $4 trillion tax cut over 20 years, but we can't print enough money to help the American people. This is a good bill. I salute my chairman, Richie Neal, and I hope every Democrat and every Republican will vote for it. And I yield back.
Gentleman from Virginia yields back. The gentleman from Massachusetts reserved. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield 1 minute. The gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let's get this straight. The small shopkeeper who's lost their entire savings because of the lockdowns will get the same $2,000 grant as the government bureaucrat who's been enjoying a steady paycheck at home for the past 10 months. This money is wholly inadequate for those who've been harmed by the lockdowns and wholly unnecessary for those who have not. And this free money doesn't come from heaven. It comes from the future earnings of those who will be struggling to get back on their feet, making the post-lockdown recovery more difficult and prolonged. And much of the burden of this debt will fall on the young, who've already borne the brunt of these lockdowns. It is, in a real sense, a massive wealth transfer from the future to the present, from the young to the old, and from those who have been hurt by the lockdowns to those who have not. There is only one way to end the suffering caused by these lockdowns, and that is to end them. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Texas reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from Texas, Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
The gentlelady from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman and the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee for his distinguished leadership. I thank our Speaker for her persistent leadership and all of the Democratic members and Republican members who understand what this legislation is. It is a survival cash payment for Americans making under a certain amount, which means they are on the survival pathway. Maybe they haven't spoken to the constituents of, I believe, probably 90% of the members of this Congress who have said they are on the edge and they're about to go over. They can't pay their rent. They can't buy food. They're in food distribution lines. Before I came here Sunday, I was in a place at a church in the Nash Greenhouse International where we were giving out food. I asked during the spring for $3,000. I was willing to go for $600 so that desperate Americans could get enough to survive. I am supporting this. I ask my friends and colleagues on both sides of the aisles, recognize that when you are privileged to stand in a place like this, where the constitutional fathers gave us the opportunity
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
To lead this government, stand for the American people. I support the Cash Act because it is survival for Americans.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I yield myself 30 seconds.
The gentleman's recognized.
I would point out to my colleague that nothing in this bill helps anyone get back to work. Not a dime to the 8 million people who are left unemployed because of COVID. Not a dime to help our small and medium-sized businesses. Not a dime for Main Street. With that, I continue to reserve.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Texas, Congressman Green.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the chair for yielding the time. Mr. Speaker, at some point on the infinite continuum that we call time, we will all have to account for our time. We're all going to have to answer the question, where were you when a pandemic was gripping the land? What did you do when you had the opportunity to put money in the pockets of people who needed it? Where was your courage when you had the chance to cast a vote to make a difference in the lives of people? I say to you, my dear friends, this is the time for us to take a stand for the American people. Let's vote yes to put money in their pockets because we caused them to stay home as a result of the pandemic. The government is for this reason. This is why the government exists, to take care of people. I yield back the balance of my time.
And yields back the balance.